from VIR, getting set for the 6th race of the GT America powered by AWS season at Virginia International Raceway. My name is Ryan Marine. We've got Calvin Fish alongside Amanda Busick in the pit lane, ready to go racing once again here at the VIR circuit. Of course, in yesterday's GT America powered by AWS race, we saw that race curtailed by a heavy accident late in that race, a red flag, and ultimately the race ended early. We do have an update on the driver in question. That was Matt Dalton, who did have a big accident yesterday. Series statement: he was awake and alert and conscious, taken to a medical center and transported to a hospital for further evaluation. But overall, good news after a heavy crash yesterday for Matt Dalton. Track temperature, as you can see there on the screen, conditions warm, not terribly hot just yet, but we're getting there. And Calvin, today's race very different from the standpoint that we're going racing in the morning. It was the heat of the afternoon yesterday, so the teams will have to adjust accordingly for this sprint race featuring GT3 and GT4 cars.
Yeah, I think what that will mean is the grip level should be up. You're not going to be slipping and sliding around just as much as you were yesterday. Also, the track has rubbered in. We didn't have any rain overnight as we did on Thursday evening, which kind of made a green racetrack for everyone to deal with in qualifying and yesterday's races. So expect perfect race conditions. And we actually had a fantastic race going on yesterday, and I hope they pick up where they left off yesterday with some action at the front.
Yeah, that's right. Ultimately, the race winners in their respective classes, Charlie Luck, not only the Masters winner, but the overall winner as well, and his bid for potentially 2 championships, depending on how you look at it. The overall title and the Masters title continues. Brendan Reeb had a great race. In the mix as well, though, was George Kurtz, and as Reeb and Luck were going at it, we saw George sneak through a gap, got to the lead briefly, but a little contact cut down a tire, and he had to go to the back.
It was literally briefly, just held it for a couple of corners before that cut down tire meant that he was slowed a little bit and everyone got back through him. So the car was working well, though. George has been struggling with his car in the other class here this weekend, but he said this race car is really good, and just a little bit of misfortune. But you know, George, he's going to dig deep. They typically come back stronger on day 2 with that team.
And a strong race going on in GT4 as well before the race was ended early. Sean Quinlan picked up the win for Stephen Cameron Racing. The rest of the GT4 podium, Jason Bell and Chris Cagnazzi. It's kind of a throwback to the old school Pirelli World Challenge days with GT3 and GT4 cars. That mixed class racing certainly spices things up. Not that this track needs any spicing up. Let's take a look around VIR with our Porsche track preview.
Hi, my name is Jan Halen, driving for SRO Motorsports here at Virginia International Raceway, and this is the Porsche track preview. As we come onto the front straightaway, ready to start this lap. Front straight, passing start finish here, 6th gear, hard into the brakes at the 3 sign, down the 2nd gear. Big rotation here, using just a little bit of that inside curbing. Back to power, and then onto turn 3, double left-hander. Really tricky corner here on the way in. Lifting a small tap on the brake, and then using all that exit curb here on the outside. Hard onto the brakes, 2nd gear into turn 4. Short shift up to 3rd. Turn 5, and then just barely lifting here into turn 6, onto the lower S's. And then a good stretch here, and ready for the famous S's here at Virginia International Raceway. Starting right here at the bottom. Super fun section of the track in these GT3Rs. All flat out, all the way to the top of the hill. Quick stab on the brake, 5th gear. Very fast section of the track. Then into Oak Tree, down the 2nd gear. Big rotation, getting ready for a good exit. And then back onto the back straightaway. Long straightaway, good opportunity here to overtake into turn 14. Lots of slipstreaming going on. Virginia is a track that really rubbers in, so as the weekend goes on, as long as you don't get too much rain, lots of rubber going down, which makes the track even better. Hard on the brakes here, right at the 50 sign, deep into the brake zone. Down turn 15, and then ready for the roller coaster. Almost flat going over this first curb, down 1 gear, and then onto the front straightaway. And that was 1 lap here at Virginia International Raceway.
As you can see from that onboard video, this VIR circuit, Calvin, it is a track that is high speed, big commitment, but with that comes big consequences if something should go wrong.
Yeah, you really drive on that knife edge all of the time between pushing and maximizing your lap time and just running a foul. And with the nature of this course, the rolling hills, I think when you get off in the grass today should be a little bit better in terms of you may have a bit more control on where you end up. But certainly yesterday, the rain we had a couple of days before meant it was literally a bit of a skating rink, and you just were hopeful that you came to a halt before you hit the barriers. But today it should be a little bit better.
Yesterday's overall winner was Charlie Luck, and our Amanda Busick has an update on his weekend.
Hey guys, and good morning from pit lane here. And oh yeah, it was pure excitement for Charlie Luck after the race. All of his family and friends are here, including his dad. It was the first time that Charlie has won from the #1 position. And when he saw his family and friends, they were kind of like throwing bows at him, saying, let me see those elbows for the battle that he had for that position yesterday. But Charlie enters into this race from the second row. He will have his work cut out for him today, but I tell you, that smile and the emotion from Charlie yesterday after the race, I think that'll push him here forward today.
Yeah, that's what it's all about in GT America. Really, this whole concept is something that coaxed him back into racing. He did a bunch of racing, stock car racing, actually, going back to the 80s, and did some single-make Porsche racing, but saw this as a great chance to go GT3 racing, and he has taken full advantage of that opportunity, Cal.
And as Amanda said, he did literally get his elbows out yesterday. He wasn't afraid to fight with both Brendan Aribe and George Kurtz to claim that victory. It was a great run.
Starting grid for race 2, which is about to commence. Brendan Aribe starting on pole. That will be in the McLaren, and that's a story that we've chronicled a little bit over the weekend, but we'll get to in a moment. It's worth rehashing, especially if you're just joining us. But George Kurtz alongside, ready to put the disappointment of yesterday behind him. Then it is Charlie Luck starting in the 3rd position. Jeff Burton will start 4th, and Jeff was in line for a great result yesterday before some contact late in the race. Jason Daskalos getting into the back of Burton just a little bit going into the roller coaster. That sent Jeff on a ride. Ultimately, the stewards elected to hand a 3 grid spot penalty to Jason Daskalos because of that contact, so he will start at 8th. 5th and 6th, though, C.J. Moses and Kyle Washington, then Jason Harward and the aforementioned Jason Daskalos. That is your GT3 grid. So many stories up and down this, but I think it's worth going over again. Just the amount of work that this Inception Racing team that we're looking at here, this McLaren, what they had to do just to have a car here this weekend.
Yeah, in a Thursday practice session, Brendan Aribe on his debut here at this circuit had a mighty off, destroyed his race car essentially beyond, basically the chassis was cracked, laminated, and they had to source out a replacement. They found one north of the border. A lot of logistics involved, but ultimately they got the car down here on Friday afternoon, did a hardship lap that night, and had a very strong pace car yesterday in both races here.
Your GT4 starting grid, it will be Jason Bell starting on the outside of Sean Quinlan. So yesterday's winner, Sean Quinlan on pole, courtesy of setting the fastest lap of the race in race number 1. Then Alex Welch, whose strong performance continues. He'll start 4th alongside Chris Cagnazzi in 3rd. Ross Schwest will start 5th. Adam Adelson in 6th. Then Rob Holland and Gray Newell, Alan Stad and Zoe Edenholm, Dominic Starkweather, Tim Pappas rounding out the starting lineup here. Couple of formation laps, Calvin, this weekend. That is a departure from the norm, but it is an opportunity for the teams and the drivers to make sure that the tires are fully up to temp and ready to go when the green flag drops.
Yeah, and I think that's a smart move with the nature of this race circuit. It's old school, a lot of curbs are used, and get the lap time, you really have to use those considerably. So this allows the cars, the drivers, to generate a bit more temperature, a little bit more tire pressure, and we should be good to go when we see the green flag today.
The race yesterday, again, we saw that great fight in the front between Aribe and Luck and George Kurtz, and I suspect because they're all starting right there together once again that it's going to resume right away, right?
That's what I said. I hope they pick up where they left off yesterday, because it was a great battle.
Also of note, Jeff Burton starting in 4th. We talked about his troubles in this race yesterday. Also racing in GT World Challenge America this weekend. 2 separate cars ordinarily, but they had an issue in the GT World Challenge America race. Actually, there was a small fire at the back of that car in race 1 yesterday. And now this GT America car, it sounds like it's going to be pressed into service for both races.
It will. The benefit of that is there's a lot of work, certainly for the crew to turn it around in time for this afternoon's race, but the setup should translate. It's not like you're hoping that the two sister cars work the same. This is the identical car, so they should get a little bit of a read on the track conditions here. It'll warm up a little bit this afternoon, and we just got confirmation it was indeed an engine failure, not a fuel leak on their sister car yesterday in the race.
That is good information to have, and thanks to all the teams who forward that information to us. We talked some about the championship implications in GT4 yesterday with Rob Holland, who left Sonoma with the championship lead in GT4. Didn't have the strongest of weekends at Circuit of the Americas. He started all the way back in 10th yesterday, got up to 6th. He starts in 6th today, so can he insert himself into the equation at the front of the GT4 field? I suspect he might.
Yeah, I mean, I think the pace is there. He was the 6th fastest car. The grid today is lining up with the speed that they had yesterday in the race. So I think this racetrack doesn't suit the Mustang as well as it suits the Mustang, the BMW, excuse me. So with the championship leader, Sean Quinlan now, he came in tied with Holland yesterday. He had the win, and he's on the pole today. So it could be just damage limitation in terms of the points today, I feel, for Rob Holland.
We've talked throughout the weekend about just how busy a weekend this is for sports car racing, and one of the big races just about to conclude actually happening over at the Nürburgring. And I bring that up because that's really where Rob Holland has done a lot of his racing in recent years. This Rotec team is a team that he started, and they have a base there at the Nürburgring. They've done a lot of racing, whether it's the 24-hour race or some of the other races throughout the year there, but got this chance to come back to SRO America, having competed in Pirelli World Challenge back in the day. In fact, ended up 3rd in the championship in TC, racing a K-Pax Racing Volvo back in 2011. And he's old friends with Greg Gill, who oversees the series here for SRO America, and got the call, said, hey, why don't you come racing back in the States? And he's been loving his racing since he's come back.
It's great to see him back. He's such a fierce competitor, and it's hard to believe it was that many years ago when he was winning races here. But we've all survived. We're still around, and it's great to see him back.
Yeah, and it's amazing what he's accomplished. I mentioned the Nürburgring stuff, but he raced in British touring cars, which, if you don't know, you should know. It's some really fierce competition. He's done the Pikes Peak Hill Climb. All of that stuff just builds that knowledge base, and so many of these drivers do have backgrounds in different forms of the sport. Back to pit lane real quick as we continue on the formation laps and another update from Amanda.
As we get ready to start the race here, guys, you'll see some spotters behind me from different teams. The shape of the start finish here is kind of difficult for drivers to see. So these guys are on hand. You can see the flag stand underneath us. That's where they're watching to get their drivers ready to hit this lap number 1.
It is an interesting front straightaway from that perspective. There is that curvature to it, and placing your spotter in the right spot to call the start, that's big. And even for the flagman himself, Tom Hansing up in that flag stand, he can't see that whole front straightaway because of some of the pit buildings and that curving nature of the piece of asphalt.
Yeah, and it's particularly beneficial for the drivers who are probably mid-pack and on towards the back end of the field. They really can't see it, so getting that call, and you are allowed to go racing immediately, so that can be important in track position on lap 1.
And over Amanda's shoulder, I spotted Boss Linders, who is the team manager for Inception Racing, and he had a busy week on his hands, no question about it, trying to find a spare chassis. And they're a busy team anyway, racing a lot in Europe as well as this program here.
Yeah, I can't even imagine the logistics of running multiple championships globally with the travel regulations in place currently.
All right, here we go through the hog pen section and about to head onto the front straightaway. Round 6 of the season. GT America powered by AWS. Front row is Brendan Reeb and George Kurtz, then Charlie Luck and Jeff Burton, CJ Moses and Kyle Washington in row number 3, looking at the flag stand, waiting for the green flag to be displayed. There it is, and we are racing at VIR. Great start for the McLaren and a Reeb. Looks like George Kurtz set to follow in line. CJ Moses poking the nose out in one of the CrowdStrike Mercedes, taking a peek to the inside and a little bit of contact with his teammate George Kurtz.
Yeah, it's really tight there, kind of 3 wide as they funnel down into turn 1. I believe everyone got away with it.
Oh, that was close there between Kurtz and Burton. Now Moses slipping back a little bit. He's got Jason Harwood taking a peek up the inside in the Lamborghini. Sean Quinlan, the pole sitter for the GT4 class, watching this all unfold out of his windshield.
Like Sean has maintained the lead in GT4, but not the start that George Kurtz was looking for. I think he's dropped back to the 5th position.
Has to have had flashbacks of yesterday with that side-by-side contact there in 1 and 2. That's what happened in race 1 of the weekend. That ultimately cut down a tire and ruined a very good race.
It's so difficult, particularly on relatively cold tires, to get down in there. The car's not going to react the same way. You ask a bit too much steering input, the front end's going to slide on you.
Great start from Chris Cognazi. He's been able to jump up to 2nd. He qualified in 3rd. It looks like Jason Bell has dropped back a little bit. You see the GT3 Porsche of Kyle Washington back in the inside of this GT4 fight, now trying to make his way around down Madison Avenue. But up front, Charlie Luck right now trying to chase down Brendan Erebe. A great start for Erebe, who got a bit of a slow start yesterday, but then chased down Luck. We might have the inverse playing out today.
What I'm impressed with Brendan is the fact that he brushed himself off after that crash here on Thursday. Didn't seem to really spoil his lap time when he got back in the race car. And some of the things that take a long time to get used to, Ryan, when you're learning this craft of driving a race car quickly. Cold tires, getting the lead, establishing that gap. He is on it, so I think he's been really well trained by Ollie Milroy there and the whole team, and he's doing a great job up front right now.
Battle for the GT4 lead is on. Yesterday's winner and the points leader, Sean Quinlan, in the Stephen Cameron Racing BMW, trying to fend off the attacking Mercedes. Right behind him, Chris Cognazi, his teammate Ross Schwest running in 3rd. But down the front straightaway there, you could see where the strength of this BMW has been this weekend. Great top-line speed.
Yeah, it definitely seems to stretch about a car length or so from the midpoint of the straightaway to the end, but then through this sector, you're going to see that Mercedes probably start to eat him up a little bit in terms of being able to be very compliant over these curbs here. Very twisty here. You can get the car working over the curbs, get good power down off this part of the racetrack, which we call the snakes that wiggled on up towards the essence.
Cognazi had a podium in race 1 at Circuit of the Americas, looking to better that with a race win potentially here in race 2 of the weekend, round 6 of the championship, currently running 2nd. This is Rob Holland, talked about his story earlier in the Mustang. Ray Newell giving chase, one of the young drivers kind of stepping into professional level racing, driving the heart of racing, Aston Martin, and what a great man he has to learn from. Ian James co-drives with him in Pirelli GT4 America and very much involved in helping his young charge develop his racing acumen. Ian James, very, very accomplished racer in his own right. And look at these two back together once again. This is where the contact happened yesterday. It was Daskalos in the Audi that got into the back of Jeff Burton. Now Jeff Burton on the charge trying to run down Jason.
Yeah, and I mean, that was really a small brush, a little love tap there. Just good, hard racing. It's going to happen in that particular corner when you're running in close proximity. So Jason feels a little aggrieved by the grid penalty that he got, but they're just trying to keep everyone clean in this form of racing right now.
This is 3rd and 4th overall. Jason Daskalos in the white with gray Audi. It is the Lamborghini of Jeff Burton. And just behind, George Kurtz trying to recover from a difficult start to this. Remember, he qualified on the outside of the front row and has dropped back to 5th here in the early going.
Yeah, I think that's the biggest surprise. I mean, he's got outshuffled there down into that funnel effect of turn 1 and turn 2, but the fact that he's not back on the tail of Burton right now.
And now Jason Harward on the charge. St. Louis Motorsports, a new team based out of Utah. His co-driver, a fellow Utah native as far as GT World Challenge America is concerned, Madison Snow. And for the first time all season long, this team has 2 separate chassis to employ for its different efforts in GT World Challenge America. And this GT American championship here, this is a race-winning, a 24 Hours of Daytona race-winning chassis that Jason Harwood is piloting right now.
Pretty nice heritage. Pretty cool that Madison Snow is reunited with that car.
He would have been part of that
event. Yeah, it's been Formula Racing.
Yeah, part of that driver lineup back in 2020. But it is a fun-loving team, no question about that. And Jason's all smiles every time you see him around the paddock. This is a big step. He's run some Super Trofeo cars in club-level racing previously, but never done anything in a professional paddock until we rolled up at Sonoma. And they showed up with big aspirations, but Some of the pit equipment was a bit late in showing up, so they ended up focusing just on GT America that weekend, and the GT World Challenge program began the second round of the season at Circuit of the Americas.
They had a nice podium run yesterday in the GT World Challenge America race, so they're a team on the bounce, do you know what I mean? I think they're really learning quickly. I think when they get their notebook built from all of the circuits that we visit over the course of this 2021 season, and if they return next year, I think they're going to be super strong vying for a championship.
In GT4, by the way, it is still Sean Quinlan leading Chris Cognazi. Alex Welch has just made a pass on Ross West and jumped up to third in GT4, while Jason Bell runs fifth. But all eyes on this fight here as we come into one of the more high-commitment zones on the track, I think it's safe to say.
Yeah, beautiful piece of racetrack here. Up through the climbing S's, maximum speed till you get about turn 2, then you roll it down a little bit, bleed some speed off, then really things slow down for the tight technical stuff through Oak Tree Corner. Right in here, this is a tricky one. Bleeding the speed off, roll through here, it gets really dirty on the outside. If you try and take too much there, you can't steer it off the racetrack. But the key is getting the power down early, getting your hands straight, getting that exit speed, and launching down Madison Avenue.
Jeff Burton taking a look, goes out of that slipstream ever so slightly. George Kurtz does seem to be making some gains. You can see that Mercedes looming in the background. His last lap, more or less on par with what these two are doing. But here on this lap, definitely advantage to George. Look at that gap close.
Yeah, it seems like the car is now heading its sweet spot, so maybe they started the tire pressures a little bit lower, and now we're coming up on 8 minutes into this race. He's starting to feel his feet a little bit.
I think they learned a lot yesterday. George was telling us that his GT World Challenge car just did not handle very well. We could see that visually. It was a little bit better by the GT America race, and I think everyone that brain trust there at DXDT Racing, they go to work overnight, and they can put a package under him that will make him a lot happier here today.
George has now got the experience to, you get him to the front, he's not frazzled at all, he can just bring it home. So track position is so key. The two leaders have taken off here a little bit. This is a great battle for third.
What a start to the year it was for George Kurtz. A pair of overall wins from pole with fastest lap in each of the first two races at Sonoma. Coda was not so kind, not classified in race 1, finished 4th in the second one. Still entering this weekend with the championship lead as far as the overall is concerned. But Charlie Luck, even though he's listed as a Masters class competitor, that's for drivers in GT3 cars 50 years and older, he's still eligible for the overall championship, and he's put together a bunch of very good results. CJ Moses has slipped back a little bit behind Jason Harward, it appears, and now Kyle Washington next to try and take his turn at the CrowdStrike Mercedes number 58 car, teammate to George Kurtz.
Up front is getting really tight as well. We talked about Charlie Luck there in terms of being the master. He's the master planner right now, starting to put the pressure on the leader, but this is a great battle. And here's this battle for the third position as well, held by Daskalos in that Audi. Burton pushing. George Kurtz's car looks to be really handling well right now. But the issue with the Mercedes, it doesn't seem to have quite the straight line speed of some of the other manufacturers out there, so it's tough to make a pass if you don't have that in that critical part. You may have to try and be a bit bold through that tight, twisty stuff like turns 3 and 4.
Jeff Burton right in the thick of this battle, and for more on his story, let's hear from Amanda.
Right here, right next to his team. Right now, they are in the radio telling Jeff to keep your head down and hit your mark as this battle goes. But this is going to be a busy day for this car. This 191 is also going to participate in the GT4 race later from a fire of the other car that Jeff drives yesterday.
Yeah, that's right. GT World Challenge America, the other race that Jeff will be competing with his car in. And that's the beauty of this GT America class. Either if you're a GT3 or GT4 competitor, if you want that extra seat time, you can theoretically run the same car in both, although most have opted to try and have bespoke chassis for each championship.
Yeah, and it's extra seat time for the drivers who may be learning a circuit for the first time or just want the extra seat time to get more comfortable, but also for the engineers and the team, it's like an extra test session to get some more data. See the sparks flying there as the car rolls through at high speed through those S's. Run these cars as low as you can to maximize the downforce, and sometimes they'll just hit those rubbing strips that are attached to the bottom of the chassis and the splitters and so forth.
Looked like Burton got a nice run out of Oak Tree there. Now down Madison Avenue. Can he stay close enough to this previous generation Audi, the R8 Ultra, version of the GT3 Audi. America opens its doors to some of the older GT3 equipment that's out there. Through balance of performance.
I think with the Ultra has a little less downforce, which means a little more less drag, more speed down the straightaway, so that may be why he's hanging on to that position.
Now Washington, a little spin there on the exit of Oak Tree, able to rejoin, however. And Burton very strong in that section of the track. Let's look at what Washington encountered here in Oak Tree.
Yeah, just rolled too much speed through there. Rear end couldn't keep up with his hands on the front, so he'll learn from that. Just looking at that competitor up in front, trying to get a good run onto Madison Avenue, and just carried too much speed there. Couldn't handle the grip.
So through turns 1 and 2 again, starting another lap. Leaders have completed 6 laps so far. It is a less than a second gap from first to second overall, by the way. Brendan Urebe leading Charlie Luck by 0.8 of a second. Then you got to go 9 seconds back to find this group here, fighting for positions 3, 4, and 5. Jason Daskalos leading Jeff Burton. George Kurtz right there as well. This is a peek at the overall leader, Brendan Urebe, and that McLaren 720S GT3. Beautiful car that made its series debut at COTA last month.
These guys may have a great shot. He and his teammate in the GT World Challenge America race this afternoon. Ollie Milroy qualified that car in 7th, though they're only about 0.7 of a second off the pole position in a car that they really didn't have much time with, so that bodes well for a strong run today.
This time out of Oak Tree, it looks like it's George Kurtz that's on the front foot, trying to run down Jeff Burton, who ducks to the inside there. George trying to stay right behind him in the slipstream, never going defensive. Can George Kurtz get around the outside?
Yeah, that double move there may get the attention of the race stewards. You have to be proactive. You can't go one way and then see if the guys take another lane and try and take that back. So they may give him a slight warning on that one to kind of tidy up his act a little bit.
I think it's a tough situation to be in for Jeff Burton. You're trying to make a pass yourself, and sometimes in so doing, you would expose yourself to the car behind. It always seems like the meat and the sandwich is really not the place you'd like to be.
It can be difficult. That's why it puts the pressure on for you to make that move and not be attacked from behind at the same time. As you try and set someone up, sometimes you're opening up the door to the inside of a particular corner. And George is certainly hunting right now. I think the car is hooked up. It works well through this tight section. Can he make a move?
Let's take a look at the DXDT reaction to the situation I think you were just talking about there. I think that hand gesture looks like maybe it was in reference to some of the moves, the defensive moves that we saw.
Yeah, George had a bit of a run, and you saw that double move by Jeff, but he's in a predicament right now because Jason is not really making any mistakes, sitting there in the 3rd position with the number 27 Audi, and it's going to need a crack or a chink in the armor, so to speak, for Jeff to make without getting his elbows out. And, approaching the halfway point in this race, I think they're going to start to get a little bit more feisty.
Take a look at our race vision powered by AWS. Top speeds overall, and Kyle Washington, fastest of the bunch in that Porsche. Jason Harwood in the Lamborghini, then the McLaren of our leader, Brendan Urebe. Charlie Luck with the 2nd fastest top speed recorded, and Jason Daskalos from this train. We've seen that top end speed through this section of the track in previous laps. It just gives him that little buffer he needs when they get to the braking zone.
It does. And that's important. It takes the pressure off, allows you to hit your mark, stay on the correct racing line, execute the lap. He's just doing a really nice, tidy job. Went on the attack early, got that track position. Now he's hanging on to it. He'd love to get a podium result here overall.
And Jason is a longtime competitor in this series, going back to, I think, at least 2007. Did a lot of racing in Vipers for his own team, but also raced for CRP Racing in a Nissan back in 2012. In recent years, has made sporadic starts in Trans Am and did race some GT Sports Club with us last year. Actually won the championship in GT3 overall in this car, despite only running at Sonoma and Elkhart Lake. We've got some
here we go.
Lap traffic here, and that could open up some opportunities.
Looks like Kurtz has come on the wrong side of that. He's got absolutely stomped. He probably lost about 3 seconds here in this little exchange.
Yep, caught Zoe Edenholm in one of the Invitational class Saline Cup cars. Just in a tough spot in the track, and there's not much you can do if you're the car being lapped either. You can't just disappear.
No, there's no button in the car to do that, so you've got to try and coexist, and sometimes the communication gets wrong. Before you know it, you're almost stalled out and everyone else is just taking off up the road. Very frustrating, but I think this will really give us a good indication to what pace George actually has right now, as he has some clean track up ahead of him momentarily.
It is the second of the two Silly Cup cars that they make their way around. Dominic Starkweather, the driver of that car. Just good to see it running after issues before the start yesterday. Don't believe it turned the left. So that is progress there as we drop back to the GT4 battle now. And Alex Welch has run down Chris Cognazzi.
Yeah, it's a good little battle. Spoke to Alex this weekend. He's got his new team that he set up himself. Long-time GMG competitor, run with that team, very happy, won the championship, the Sprint X Championship with James Sofronis back in 2018. This is the same car, so Alex actually owned that car even when he was campaigning it with GMG. They put the Eagle oil problems here. Coming on the front straight away at a hog pen.
It's Jeff Burton, who is right there putting the pressure on Daskalos. Let's take a look at this, Cal.
Tries to get on the power and just drops a wheel there. Sometimes you're looking ahead. You really got to use your peripheral vision there to feel the edge of the road. Just keeps turning. You think you've completed the corner, and got lucky that following competitor didn't get into him.
There's a lot of smoke to drive through for a couple of cars there, but Jeff Burton got away with that one, and he's back on the charge. Now he's got to get back through that lap traffic once again, out of class traffic, it's worth noting. 22 minutes and change on the clock, nearing the halfway mark. Still Brendan Uribe, and he's actually built that lead up. We mentioned it was down under a second. Well, it's back up over 3 now, so we'll check back in with Jason Daskalos. George Kurtz up to 4th with the misfortune there for Jeff Burton. And back to the Daskalos story, we mentioned it yesterday that he's getting some help this weekend from Nick Short and his CRP racing team based in relatively nearby, I think it's the Charlotte area of North Carolina. And there is that history there. The two had campaigned together back in, I think it was 2012.
Yeah, ran the Nissan back then, I believe. So good chemistry, and Nick's a good guy. He's a pretty sharp engineer. And he just said the car needed a little bit of a tune-up. We've just been working on it, working on some of the live parts in terms of the maintenance of the car as well for Daskalos. So it's a good fit. I mean, I really like the fact to see Nick Short back in our paddock, a long-time entrant.
Here comes Rob Holland in the Motul-sponsored Ford Mustang, breathing down the neck of Jason Bell, who had a runner-up finish in GT4 yesterday. GMG Racing Aston Martin. Seems very happy with that Aston Martin selection. And Jason himself is embroiled in a bit of a battle. He is right on the gearbox of Ross Schwest up in front. That is for 4th, 5th, and 6th in GT4.
Yes, he didn't have the best first lap, Jason Bell, but now he's got into his rhythm and really hitting his marks. And you can see that Aston Martin is really working well around this racetrack. We've talked a lot about, you know, a car like the Mercedes that seems to be very good everywhere we go to. Works well at a variety of racetracks. Problems there for Holland. Just got in a little too deep. And once you get just even half a car width off that racing line, that's how treacherous that particular area of the racetrack can be. And it's only going to get worse as the day moves on. We get more and more dust and marbles out there.
Able to get away with the spin more or less. Did drop a spot. You saw Gray Newell come through in the heart of racing Aston Martin. So Newell now picks up one more position, up to 6th.
This makes Bell's task a little bit easier. He doesn't have Holland filling those rear view mirrors and that rear facing camera. He can just focus forward now on Ross Schwest. You know that Jason would love to get back into a podium position, but Walsh and company are a long way down the road now.
Yeah, 43-year-old from Tampa, Florida, Jason Bell in the white with blue trim. Aston Martin chasing down the Mercedes up ahead. Then it's Alex Welch up here fighting with Chris Cognazzi. Great battles all over this track. This is for 2nd and 3rd. Just up the road, that's Sean Quinlan coming through the screen, the leader in GT4 for Stephen Cameron Racing. Looking to go back-to-back, sweep the weekend if he can keep this result up for another 19 minutes and 52 seconds.
Yeah, getting back to the story on Welsh, putting his new team together. He went to none other than Brad Kettler, who was running the Audi customer service program for so long. Has had numerous victories at the 24 Hours of Le Mans as a chief engineer and mechanic, and he put together the A-team. Brad gave him some really good crew members.
Look at this.
Oh, he's
battle
wide.
resuming. Yep.
That has opened the door there. George is going to plow it down to the inside, but Jason doesn't want to give it to him. Close racing. Oh, that was really unfortunate.
A little bit too close.
Yeah, Jason was just a bit too aggressive there. He needed to back out of that, get back into a rhythm.
Looks like potential problems as well for the car, trying to get it refired. George Kurtz just shaking his head inside the cockpit. It has not been his weekend, to say the least. It looks like Daskalos might be off the pace as well.
Could have damage possibly to the front end, and maybe George does too. That car looks like it's limping a little bit. They've broken a track rod on the tail end.
Yep, and I think he feels it. He's not going to continue. That is really disappointing.
It was really late in the corner. It looked like they're both just going to accelerate and continue, and maybe George just didn't get to power soon enough, was trying to collect himself, and Jason just a bit too aggressive there with throttle application. Take another look at it. I mean, George essentially has it, and then Jason is up and over the curb. That's probably what created that. The air is hard to turn them.
Yeah. I saw it the same way. Looked like Daskalos just caught a bit too much of that curb. It popped his front wheels up into the air, and like you say, unless the Pirellis are touching the pavement, it's not going to help you too much. Looks like Kurtz is going to try and limp that car back home.
I guess crabbing a little bit.
Yeah, it looks like it to me too. Well, disappointment for both George Kurtz and Jason Daskalos. That's going to be great news for Jason Harwood and Jeff Burton, C.J. Moses, Kyle Washington. They get 2 spots there because of that, it would appear, assuming that Daskalos can't get back up to speed.
Harwood now up into a podium position for that team. That's awesome.
Let's go back to the pit lane. Amanda's got another update for us.
We're actually at Alex Welch's, which is right next to George Kurtz when he saw his team throw his hands in the air in the disbelief. Well, guys, you might remember back at that first race in Sonoma, Alex was in position to get the 3rd spot of the podium, but a tire took them out, so they feel that one got away with them, but they're in position today. There is the cat and mouse going on with Cagnazzi right now, but they're not even focused on that. They've set this car up for 5 minutes left in the race is when they're planning on their attack. So to get that first podium would be a big win here for Alex.
That's a great note. And Calvin, from the team's perspective, what can you do from the setup side to make sure that car is at its peak performance window at that last critical juncture of the race?
Yeah, well, typically it relates to the starting tire pressure, so you can allow those tire pressures to build with the temperature, and it's much cooler today. The key is getting a full 40 minutes of green flag racing. It's a good strategy, but it can be a risky one in terms of, are you going to see green flag racing at the end of a 40-minute run? But they certainly feel on the long run pace, the Audi is pretty kind to its tires, so they could be in good shape and may be able to take advantage. But Mercedes is pretty strong too in terms of preserving that tire degradation.
Curious to see what the ebb and flow is going to be at the front of this field as Brendan Iribe, the overall leader, and Charlie Luck, they are now into the thick of the GT4 field. And lap traffic, out-of-class traffic, can always have an impact. You can see Jason Daskalos just shaking his head. Crew member points to the left front, and that's the corner of the car that made contact with George Kurtz, as you'll see right here.
Yeah, he's kind of in the dirt there, nowhere to go, and just I'm sure he's frustrated. I mean, it was a legitimate move by George. I mean, Jason had the little bobble coming out of turn 3, opened up the door for him, and it's just one of those areas of the racetrack. It's doable. It's become a very legitimate passing zone over the last 3 or 4 years. Initially, we never saw many passes there, but everyone's kind of seen the cut and paste replays and have a go themselves.
15 minutes left. This is your overall leader, Brendan Iribe. What a bounce back it would be. What gratification I have to believe it would bring to him after the troubled start to the weekend. If he was able to keep this car out in front, has a nice, healthy 3.5-second lead right now over Charlie Luck. So it doesn't seem like he had any trouble making his way through the GT4 cars.
No, I think he got a good run through there because at one point, I mean, Charlie was staying like within half a second to a second of him for many laps there, and then they hit some traffic and Iribe got the gap, and it seems like Charlie's now just settled in, just going to try and bring it home. But for this team, these extra laps in this race here today are really beneficial for them in terms of getting this car dialed in for this afternoon's very important race.
Up onto the pit straight to complete his 14th lap of the race so far. Charlie Luck running in second, and we go back to our fight here in GT4. It has not relented, has it? Alex Welch right there, and he's been in the tire tracks for what seems like the last 10 minutes at least, Calvin, and just trying to find a way past, but it's hard to do.
Yeah, and Quinlan's doing a nice job of just maintaining his pace, hitting his marks, no mistakes, very consistent lap times. But right now it certainly feels like the team told Amanda that this Audi is starting to come alive late in this race. For Cagnazzi, he's really on his toes now. Will he be distracted? Is he able to maintain that poise with someone literally filling his mirrors right now?
Alex Welch in the Audi, the 2018 World Challenge Sprint X GTS Pro-Am champion. And a couple of wins that year, looking for a win potentially. Driving solo. Running third at the moment. 1, 2, 3, all coming through the shot here all together. Not much between them. And I wonder what Welch could do if he were to get past Cagnazzi. Do you think he's got the pace to maybe run down Quinn?
Possibly. I mean, the BMW, slightly heavier car, and can end up using its tires a little bit more. So you'd have to feel that Steve Cameron is on the horn to Sean Quinlan, his driver, and telling him, okay, try and maintain the gap, but don't take too much out of the tires. You may have a fight with that Audi before the checkered flag here today.
Not much to separate these two cars. Does seem like maybe Welch is a bit stronger here on the straight, closes in pretty consistently, but hasn't been able to be close enough to make a move. Look how close they get though here through roller coaster.
Yeah, he's really close, and that's as close as you can get without contact. So Cagnazzi is feeling it. Right now what Alex needs to do is just give himself a car length gap there to just really roll on the power right here, try and get that exit speed out of Hogpen, and then draft him down this front straightaway. Looks like he may have got that run.
We saw Cagnazzi go a little bit defensive last time. This time, though, Welch is able to get to the right. That's going to be the inside when we get to Horseshoe. Turn number 1. Welch with a nose out in front. Audi versus Mercedes into the braking zone. Alex Welch moves up to P2.
That was textbook there, just brilliant racecraft, but that allows Cagnazzi to get a bit of a run, but Alex should have the inside line here. Tricky to get through that left-hander, but Cagnazzi just gives it up and gives Alex the breathing room as they are now heading towards the snake.
Now 12 minutes remaining. He's clear of Cagnazzi. Alex Welch with his target firmly affixed out the windshield. Sean Quinlan just up the road, the class leader in GT4, as some of the GT3 cars are coming through once again. That's also going to upset the apple cart potentially for these GT4 class battles.
Yeah, you can see the overlap there between a GT3 car that accelerates a little bit stronger than these GT4 cars. Nice job there by Howard getting through that cleanly. It was close to Cagnazzi there as they were starting the S's.
Welch did well to see that car coming too, and just gave the little bit of room he needed. And there is an art to being passed, as silly as that sounds, but when an out-of-class car is coming through, there are ways to do it where you lose less time, and over the course of a race, that can make all the difference in the world.
Yeah, you need to be in sync with one another. You need to be able to breathe it just at the critical moment, allow that faster car to get through. But if the other driver is attempting to attack you in a different manner, sometimes it can go awry and you both end up losing time or have contact. So it's just that dynamic, that rhythm of a race and knowing your competitors, and that's something you build over the course of a season.
Well, and Harwood needs to make sure he's going as quick as he can, because this car here, Jeff Burton's on a bit of a comeback drive. He's trying to run him down, and in recent laps has made some progress in doing that. Remember, he had a spin right about in this spot coming out of the final corner just a few laps ago, dropped a few spots, dropped a lot of track position, but has slowly but surely been making his way forward. Now pokes his nose to the inside of Welch, the second place runner in GT4. Probably doesn't do Welch any favors to get caught right there, but the two continue on. It does seem like, though, in all of this exchange that Quinlan has been able to pull away to some degree.
Yeah, he has. He's done a really nice job, and I think what's been fun. We talked about it yesterday, to see him evolve as a driver and gain that confidence and be able to lead races and feel comfortable out there. It's kind of it's all about your comfort zone. You can run, you can learn the craft of driving, you can find lap time, you can be quick, but leading a race is enormous pressure, and dealing with that without making those critical errors is the real key to victory, of course.
A note from Amanda, she heard from the DXDT racing team. We saw George Kurtz initially trying to limp that car back to the pit lane. Evidently, they felt it was more safe just to park the car in a safe area, and that's what they've done. So they done early for our outside front row starter, George Kurtz, who was clearly fast, as you can see right there. Corner speeds at South Bend, 111.8 miles per hour. That's in a corner, Cal. That's fast.
That is. It's kind of where you slow it down through those high-speed S's, so you're coming down a couple of gears just to finish off the S's, but still very impressive speed.
Yeah, South Bend, that left-hand kink right before you get to 11. That's the corner that feeds into Oak Tree, turn number 12. A lot going on there. Elevation change, turning left, setting up to turn right, getting on the brakes. It's a lot of different dynamics in play, and we've seen it catch out a couple of drivers throughout the course of the weekend.
Yeah, this is a really flowing racetrack that really demands excellent footwork and balance in the race car. You're asking a lot of the car to do at the same time, so it's not straight and basic and straightforward going A to B. It's a lot of flowing corners where you're really balancing the car with the brake and picking up the throttle, not just flat out racing.
Brendan Urie leading Charlie Luck. That visually is the gap. If you want to quantify it, it's up over 8 seconds now. And Luck had really gone on a charge early on, Calvin, but Brendan Urie has answered and just been knocking out lap after lap. Really, really quick times. Has the fastest lap of the race as well at a 147.173. Although it's worth noting, Charlie Luck is within a hundredth or two of that as far as his best time is concerned, but in recent laps at least, it's been advantage Urie as he's been able to build that advantage.
Yeah, and those two guys are kind of in a class of their own. They've got a good second over the rest of the field. They're taking the fastest lap, so they're leading and they're doing it on pure pace and staying out of trouble. But this battle is heating up nicely. Quinlan continuing to do a nice job as these GT4 leaders are dealing with those faster GT3 cars coming through them. We've got the Invitational cars there with the Celine up ahead. Oh, this could be good for Welsh. Look at Welsh close in on our leader there. 58 car of CJ Moses slices to the inside, and that has closed up the battle for the lead.
Well, traffic giveth and traffic taketh away. We saw it advantage Sean Quinlan a couple of times, but in this most recent exchange, it's been advantage to Alex Welch. And don't sleep on Chris Cognati, who's stayed in the frame too. Out of class traffic with the Invitational Celine Cup car. Quinlan able to clear it. Welch is not. Now he does, but that was not before. He gave up a bunch of time there, and that will be music to the ears of the Stephen Cameron racing team, Amanda.
Well, Sean Quinlan is very well of this push that's happening by Alex Wells. I talked to the team here, and they've just told him to make sure to work on those speeds, especially in the brake zone. So as they get out of Sector 2 and head to Sector 3, that's where they're having Sean focus on this racetrack to stay ahead of Alex Welch.
What do you make of that advice, Calvin?
Yeah, I think it's key. Know where your strengths are, and then hit your marks. I mean, there's certain parts of this racetrack you can't pass unless there's traffic involved. So it's all about being sharp, recognizing, you know what, we're going to have the advantage down the end of the straightaways with this BMW. That should clear you in terms of any braking opportunities for your nearest competitors behind down in those brake zones.
Not sure you can chalk it up just to that instance of catching traffic at the wrong place, but comparing lap times. On the last lap, Sean Quinlan a 158.2, Alex Welch a 158.9, so pretty big difference there, and it's probably about what you would say that that little interaction with the Celine car would have cost him. But you never know, because there's going to be more lap traffic before this race is done, and the next time it might be Quinlan that gets caught out.
Yep, it's just hope it all comes out in the wash in terms of you will get fair play through that, but sometimes it can determine a win. And Alex just needs to be close enough to pounce if there is traffic involved in this last 5 minutes or so.
Sean Quinlan on the season, again, came into the weekend tied for the points lead. Took it outright with yesterday's result, has 3 race wins now on the year, 3 poles as well, and only 1 finish worse than third. all year, and that was an 11th in the first race at COTA, but that was a rain-marred race and a bit of an anomaly in a lot of respects. But he, as we've talked about throughout the season, Calvin, Sean Quinlan has rounded himself into a very good GT4 racer, and we see that in probably GT4 America too. When the AM part of the Pro-Am pairings is out there, he's always amongst the fastest in his run group, and that's been a nice progression that we've seen from him over the past few seasons.
Yeah, and stays out of trouble. You know, some of these drivers can be learning and be fast at times and make those critical errors, run off the racetrack, damage the race car. Sean doesn't tend to do that, and it gives the team the consistency. They get more laps, more data. Stephen Cameron's a great engineer to keep fine-tuning that race car, making it better, and just set yourself up. You can either seal the deal after Greg Leafuge in the Sprint X competition kind of sets the plate, and conversely, you can have a really consistent run, then hand over the reins for the team to have a solid day.
CJ Moses in the Crown Strike, Amazon Web Services Mercedes for DXDT Racing. Longtime veteran of club-level racing, including several appearances at the SCCA runoffs, largely in Mitsubishi Lancer Evos, going back to 2007. Has a lot of experience at this track. He's a resident of Virginia, up in the northern part of the state. And at the moment, in line for a best result of the year, if it should hold, as he runs in 5th.
Yeah, felt confident coming into this weekend. The team did some nice testing here, but the racetrack's been a little bit different in terms of the balance that the competitors who did test here a month or so ago are finding here. A little bit hotter yesterday. Ambients were up around 90, so different when you're testing in 70-degree weather.
This would actually match his best result of the year. He finished 5th yesterday in race 1, so holding serve in race 2. Corner speeds at South Bend once again. Just amazing how fast some of these corners are at VIR, and that's part of the allure. That's part of what draws drivers to this track and has them raving about it when they come here for the first time.
Yeah, it reminds me a lot in terms of commitment, like a Canadian Tire Motorsports Park. You can't just be driving that track 9/10 and get any sort of reasonable lap time. You've got to really go on the attack, and that makes the edge very fine.
Moses quick through the Oak Tree corner. That's probably the slowest corner on the track. Turn 12 that leads onto that long back straightaway known as Madison Avenue. CJ still getting to grips with GT3 racing. Did some GT4. Did some touring car racing, had 3 podiums, in fact, in TC America last year, finished 5th in his championship. Now stepping up to GT America for 2021. 2 minutes and change remaining. Brendan Erebe, a healthy lead of nearly 8 seconds, over 8 seconds actually, for the American, making his first ever appearance at VIR this weekend. Inception Racing by Optimum, the team with primarily a European-based staff that flies back and forth. Brendan was racing over at Paul Ricard last weekend, part of the Fanatec GT World Challenge Europe, powered by AWS. But back to GT4. Battle for the lead is on Calvin with 90 seconds left. Alex Welch has caught Sean Quinlan.
Well, Amanda said the team was setting the car for the last 5 minutes. We're into that right now. What can he do with it? This BMW should stretch that gap a little bit as you crest this hill, head down towards that brake zone. But Alex is going to be on the attack. Can he force Sean Quinlan into a mistake here late in the day, getting that braking right as you're transitioning back across the road? Tricky braking zone there. Then down the hill. Tires are well worn at this stage of the game. Can he force a little slip from Quinlan as they come through Hogpen?
What do you think Alex learned from his battle with Chris Cognanzi that he can use here in this final minute?
Well, just the timing through that sector there. If you got an advantage through the apex at Hogpen, you got to wait for your competitor to go in front of you. You need to create a little gap, but Sean Quinlan absolutely nailed it there. So 1 lap here to go, maybe. It depends where the overall leader is, if they have 2 or 1 more lap to go.
The gap at the line was less than half a second. First, second, and third all together in GT4. Maybe a little slip there from Welch. Slid a bit wide, dropped a couple of car lengths back. Sean Quinlan controlling this race from the pole, but Alex Welch giving chase with just 20 seconds left on the clock.
Yeah, and I think these guys basically got a lap and a half to go. I don't think the overall leader is going to get that white flag and then pass these guys before he gets back to the stripe. So it should be 1.5 laps here for Welch.
White flag has been displayed to the overall leader, Brendan Iribe. So you're right, this lap and one more for the GT4 competitors. So plenty of time for Welch. Hard to be patient in this situation, but patience still is a virtue.
Just Sean Quinlan refusing to buckle here, just hitting his marks. And he knows, just a nice clean exit. Don't make a mistake here. This is where you can really try and roll too much speed and make that critical error. Just keep it nice and tidy, nice and clean. Hit the power, and you know that that BMW speed is going to come into play for the second half of this straightaway and maybe give you enough of a gap, enough of a cushion to get through the roller coaster and out of hog pen with enough to take the pressure off down into that brake zone for turn 1.
No changes at the front of the GT3 field, so we stay here in GT4. Look at the gap that Quinlan was able to pull out of Oak Tree. I'm not sure that was just the horsepower of the BMW. That was good execution through that hairpin corner, but here comes Welch. This is where the Audi has been strong, through roller coaster and into hog pen.
Yeah, it's really good through there, but Quinlan's car is pretty good as well, so unlike the advantage that Alex seemed to have over Koknazi coming through there, he doesn't have the same advantage on Quinlan. Quinlan continues to lead with 3.25 miles to go.
White flag for the GT4 leaders. Brendan Iribe already nearly around to take the checkered flag. What a bounce back it will be for Brendan Iribe. A crash earlier in the weekend. The team had to source a brand new chassis, and this new car ends up in victory lane. Brendan Iribe takes the checkered flag at VIR.
Fantastic result, great drive. Just textbook, really, and for a man that early in his career, solid stuff. But the battle for the GT4 win is going to go down to the line.
Here we are through Snake, then up to the climbing S's. Stephen Cameron Racing, Sean Quinlan, Blades Rotor Racing, and Alex Welch. Welch in the Audi, right there in the tire tracks up through the climbing S's.
Got to keep the pressure on. Sean has just not made that critical error yet. Continuing to hit his marks. Perfect so far.
Now the brake zone of 11, Oak Tree, turn number 12. He got a great jump off of this corner last time, did Sean Quinlan. Welch looks a little bit closer this time. Can he stay close enough?
He is closer. Is he going to be close enough to threaten for that push down into that deep brake zone? Probably going to be looking from about 3 to 4 car lengths back. That's a bold move if he attempts it.
Both of them with GT4 championships on their resume. Now going.
Here he comes. You can see the advantage he has right there, but not close enough to do anything with it. Quinlan just has to keep it tidy. Hog pen is going to be the critical corner.
Alex Welch trying to get close enough to make a run down the front straightaway in a drag race to the checkered flag. But it's a good run out of hog pen for Sean Quinlan, who's going to go flag to flag. Sean Quinlan dominates from pole, holds off Alex Welch, and picks up his second win of the weekend here at VIR.
Solid stuff from both our winners here today. Just didn't put a foot wrong. Excellent drive by Alex Welch there, putting the pressure on. They'll be happy with that result. I think it's really an improvement. The team is really starting to gel nicely.
Best finish of the season so far from Alex Welch. It's been a good weekend for that team and that driver. Alex finished 4th yesterday. Had no finish better than 6th coming into the weekend, back in 10th in points. Well, I suspect he'll take a nice jump towards the pointy end of the points standings with a nice weekend here. Finishes at 4th and 2nd, but a great result from Sean Quinlan, which should help him solidify the points lead in GT4. Brendan Iribe might be in the points consideration despite the fact he was not at Sonoma based on the strength of his performances at Circuit of the Americas and now here at VIR. Charlie Luck continues his strong run of form. An overall win yesterday, a class win today. And how about it? Jeff Burton gets up to 3rd despite the spin on the front straightaway.
Yeah, and CJ Moses, a nice run up to 4th there around Harwood. So that's a really good result for him.
It is. It's the best result of the season for CJ. Jason drops back to 5th in the final analysis. Then we get into our GT4 runners, Sean Quinlan, Alex Welch, Chris Koknazi, the podium finishers in GT4. Ross Schwest and Jason Bell, 4th and 5th. Down to some of those that had some misfortune. Saw the contact between Daskalos and Kurtz that ended both of their days early. Didn't look like Tim Pappas turned a lap in the race, or maybe just a handful, I guess, but was out early. Not sure what the problem was, but it's been a bit of a fraught weekend for the Black Swan Racing team, and they'll have to go back to the drawing board. But here in Victory Circle, you take a look at this Inception Racing by Optimum team. It's been a great weekend for Brendan Arebe, and Amanda is there.
Oh, and we're standing by as he's hugging his teammates. And Brendan, as you look back at the battles that your team faced this weekend, this was all you getting this win. How gratifying is that for you?
Felt really good. Felt like Coda when we had some incidents, and then we turned it around on the second race, and so this feels really good.
Congratulations to the Inception team.
Thank you.
That's a big smile on his face, and it's not the way the weekend started, but to bounce back the way they did is remarkable.
That's what I've been impressed about him, that he just got the discipline to just brush it off, move, focus forward, and just pick up the reins and get back on the horse like he has. At a racetrack like this isn't an intimidating place, and when you have a moment like he did, it can throw you off your game for the complete weekend, but not in this case with Brendan.
He did have the CrowdStrike fastest lap of the race, 147.173, and a great tune-up for him, because we'll see him, this car, and his very fast co-driver, Ollie Milroy, a little bit later today in the GT World Challenge race. From the overall winner to the Masters class winner and yesterday's overall winner, Amanda is with Charlie Luck.
Charlie, a very successful weekend for you in front of your friends and family. What will you take from this weekend?
Yeah, I think first off, I just can't thank everybody enough on the crew. And also, I moved up to this class. This is the first year, 4 years in Cup, and I think I've really proven to myself and to other people that we can do this and we can compete here. And yesterday was an incredible win for us, and then today we're P2 overall and first in Masters. So I think the biggest thing is confidence. And yesterday we battled and beat on each other, and it was awesome stuff. That's what racing's all about. And we raced each other clean. So, yeah, that definitely builds confidence, and you just love this sport. It's the coolest thing in the world.
Congratulations, Charlie.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah, he's loving it. Great job, Charlie.
Yeah, that's what you want to see. And it was a great battle up at the front yesterday. We didn't quite get to see it play out the way we anticipated here today. Brendan Arebe took pole and kind of scooted off. It looked for a little bit like Charlie might be catching him, but Brendan had every answer. Nevertheless, great weekend for Charlie and this whole Wright Motorsports team. They've been strong with their GT World Challenge program, too.
Yeah, he had the pace once again. He's only 100th of a second off of Brendan's fastest lap of the day, so the pace was there. Looked like Brendan got a slightly better run through traffic and then just kept running those consistent laps. And I think Charlie at some point just said, you know what, let's consolidate our championship lead. He leads both the Masters and overall right now, so really strong day for Wright Motorsport. Well,
if you thought Brendan and Charlie had big smiles, let's get to maybe the smiliest guy in the paddock. Sean Quinlan is with Amanda.
Oh, yeah, you could see it coming out of that BMW. And, Sean, you sweep the weekend, you take the points lead, but I want to know what was going through your mind on that last lap as Alex was pushing.
He was definitely coming. The BMW's hard car to pass here, so I just had to keep it clean, not make a mistake, and I was pretty sure I could stay ahead of him. But, yeah, he was definitely coming. I was a little worried.
Congratulations on the weekend.
Thank you.
Great result, great weekend for Sean Quinlan. Let's look at the highlights of the race here. Brendan Arebe from pole got off to a great start, but look at this move up the inside. Aggressive from CJ Moses. That caught out his teammate, George Kurtz, and George never really could recover from there.
It just opened up the door for some of the Lamborghinis as well, and George was on the back foot the rest of the way.
CJ dropped it back a couple of places there. Had a nice rebound, though, to get up to fourth. And further back, look at the chaos in the GT4 field. Now, side by side, this was Jeff Burton and Jason Daskalos.
Yeah, they had a great battle yesterday, and they picked up the pieces here today, trying to slice their way through traffic. Tight quarters right there into turn 4.
It stayed in tight quarters out of 4 as well. And a couple of those cars here today. George Kurtz was watching that, trying to get up into that mix. Ultimately, he did run down that pairing as they continue to do battle here through Hog Pen. And this was a wild ride from Jeff Burton.
Yes, Lucky Stars getting away with that one, and this was unfortunate. Just as George had made the move on Daskalos, he gets up and over the curb, damage to both race cars.
That was the GT3 fight. This is the GT4 fight. Alex Welch able to pass Chris Cognati, got up to second. Then we had Brendan Arebe across the line with the checkered flag. Ultimately, Sean Quinlan held off Alex Welch and picked up the GT4 win.